Okay, I want you to try a quick experiment with me. Just, reach into your pocket or your purse, pull out your wallet, take out a banknote. Doesn't matter if it's a dollar, a pound, a rupee, just hold it in your hand for a second.
All right, I'm with you. I'm visualizing it.
You look at that piece of paper and you see safety, right? You see groceries, you see rent. It's the result of your hard work. It represents value.
Well, that's the whole social contract, isn't it?
Yeah.
We all agree, and we trust that that piece of paper is worth something.
Exactly. Now, imagine sitting across from a man who looks you dead in the eye, points at that cash in your hand, and tells you it is toilet paper.
Wow.
Okay, he doesn't just say it's losing value. He says it is fake.
Yeah.
And he tells you that by saving it, by putting it in the bank like you're supposed to, you are actively being a loser in a global game rigged against you.
That is a really violent wake-up call.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's kind of insulting if you've spent your whole life trying to save up that so-called toilet paper.
Right. But that's the energy we are dealing with today. We are doing a deep dive into a recent and frankly kind of terrifying appearance by Robert Kiyosaki on The Ranveer Show. Now, everyone knows Kiyosaki. He's the rich dad, poor dad guy.
Mm-hmm. And usually when you think of rich dad, poor dad, you think of, I don't know, fairly wholesome advice, buy a duplex, get some rental income.
Escape the rat race.
Yeah.
Aspirational stuff.
Right.
Yeah, this was not that. I've listened to a lot of financial podcasts, and the vibe here wasn't let's get rich together. It was more like the world is burning, everyone is lying to you, and you need to go build a bunker.
It was incredibly dark. The source material we're looking at today, it shows a worldview that has shifted from, simple financial education to like full-blown survivalism. He's not just talking about ROI anymore. He's talking about a global economy he believes is imploding, an education system he calls Marxist, and a third world war that, he thinks it's already started.
He actually told the interviewer at one point that he doesn't care about happiness.
That really stuck with me.
He said he cares about mission and integrity. Happiness is totally irrelevant. So our mission for this deep dive is to decode that intensity. We need to look past the aggression, and believe me, he gets very aggressive, to understand the mechanics of what he's actually saying. Because if he's even 10% right, we have a problem.
We have a massive problem.
Yep.
And to understand the mechanics, you have to start with that toilet paper comment.
Yep.
Sounds like hyperbole, just an old guy shouting. But for Kiyosaki, fake money is a literal economic definition.
So let's break this down. Theme 1, fake money versus real money. During the interview, he literally holds up a silver coin and a banknote. One is treasure, he says, one is trash. But, playing devil's advocate here, I can go to the store and buy milk with that banknote. It works. So why does he insist on calling it fake?
It all comes down to where the value comes from. Kiyosaki's argument, and look, this is a real economic theory, even if he says it aggressively, is that fiat currency is fake because it's backed by, nothing but a government decree.
Fiat literally means let it be done, right? Like, it has value just because the government said so.
Exactly. It's paper and trust. But Kiyosaki's big issue with the current system is that because it's just paper, it can be printed whenever they want. And when a government prints money, they're diluting the supply. Think of it like a pizza.
Okay, I like pizza.
If you slice a pizza into 4 huge slices, you have a lot of pizza per slice. But if you slice it into 10,000 tiny slices, you're holding a crumb. The pizza didn't get bigger. The slices just got smaller. That's what's happening to your dollar when the government prints trillions.
And he argues this isn't an accident, is that right? He seems to think it's malicious.
He sees it as direct theft. He says explicitly that the government prints money to make crooks richer.
That is a very heavy accusation.
It is. But his logic is that the people closest to the so-called money printer, the big banks, government contractors, they get the new cash first. By the time it trickles down to you and me as, say, a wage increase, prices have already gone up. That's inflation. He sees it as a machine designed to keep the poor poor.
Which explains that line about savers being losers. I always thought that was just a catchy slogan, but he means it literally.
He means it mathematically.
Mm.
If you are working for a currency that is losing value every single second because of printing, you're on a hamster wheel. If the bank pays you, 4% interest, but inflation is 8%, you are actively losing purchasing power every single day you leave that money in the bank. You are losing the game.
Okay, so if the dollar is fake because they can print it to infinity, what does he consider real money?
Finite assets, things you cannot print. He was specifically pounding the table for silver and gold. But
Yeah.
did you notice he really, really favored silver in this interview?
I did. He barely mentioned gold. Why is that? I mean, usually gold is the, pun intended, the gold standard.
It's all about accessibility. He calls silver the people's money. He points out that gold is expensive, what, over $2,000 an ounce? A normal working class person can't just go buy a bag of gold
Yeah, but
bars.
silver.
At the time of the interview, it was hovering around $35 an ounce.
He kept saying everyone in the world can afford this.
And that's the key. You can't necessarily buy an oil well. You can't buy a shiny apartment complex. But you can buy a silver coin. He sees it as the single best investment right now because it's a tangible asset, it's accessible to the working class, and it sits outside the banking system.
So it's about getting your wealth out of that system.
Precisely. If the dollar collapses tomorrow, the silver coin in your pocket is still silver. It has industrial use. It's real.
Now, speaking of getting out of the system,
Yeah.
there was another asset he threw into that real money bucket that really surprised me, because usually guys of his generation, the gold bugs, they hate crypto. They think it's just magic internet money. But Kiyosaki, he loves Bitcoin.
He does. But we have to be really careful here. He loves it for a very specific reason. He didn't say, buy Bitcoin because you'll get a Lambo. He didn't talk about the tech being cool.
No, he used a very specific word. He said he supports Bitcoin because of integrity.
Right. And this is a fascinating philosophical pivot for him. When he talks about integrity, he isn't talking about, moral goodness. He's defining it as being whole, structural integrity.
Like a building that's not going to fall down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He argues the U.S. dollar lacks integrity because politicians can manipulate it. They can print more to pay for wars or bailouts. It's flimsy. It lacks structural soundness. But the blockchain,
It's immutable.
it's mathematically fixed. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. No central banker can wake up tomorrow and decide to print 1 million more to save the economy. So, to Kiyosaki, Bitcoin has integrity because it holds its shape. In his framework, silver, gold, and Bitcoin are all allies. They're all part of the rebellion against the fake fiat system.
That really reframes the whole crypto conversation, doesn't it? From investment tech to rebellion against the central bank.
Completely. And that rebellion is the thread that ties everything together for him. He sees himself as a rebel. And to understand why he hates the system so much, why he hates the banks, the government, and especially the teachers, you have to go back to the origin story.
The two dads.
The two dads.
Now, if you've read the book, you know the basics. But for anyone who hasn't, or maybe hasn't thought about it in 20 years, let's do a quick recap.
So poor dad was his biological father, a very intelligent man, PhD, the head of education in Hawaii. But he always struggled with money. Rich dad was his best friend's father, who never even finished 8th grade but became this massive capitalist and entrepreneur.
And in this particular interview, he really sharpened the knives on his biological dad. I mean, he called his own father a communist.
It's a heavy label to put on your own parent. But Kiyosaki uses communist and Marxist as shorthand for a specific mindset. His poor dad believed that the government should take care of people. He believed that the love of money was the root of all evil. He believed in the system.
And rich dad believed the complete opposite.
Right. Rich dad believed the lack of money was the root of all evil. But the crucial moment for Kiyosaki, the trauma, really, he describes it happening when he was just 9 years old.
The classroom story.
Yeah. He looked around his classroom. He was in a school with mostly rich kids, white kids, whose parents were plantation owners, business titans. And little Robert asks his dad, "Why aren't we rich?" And his dad, the PhD, says, "If you stay in school, you'll be rich."
And Kiyosaki called that the lie.
Because he had eyes. He saw his highly educated dad struggling to pay bills while the so-called uneducated capitalists were thriving. That moment, at 9 years old, is where he totally lost faith in the education system. He realized that school teaches you how to be an employee, not how to be rich.
And he has not gained it back. In fact, he seems even angrier at schools now than he did 30 years ago. He went on a huge tear about teachers. He called schools Marxist institutions.
He did. He believes the entire curriculum is designed to keep people poor and compliant. To make you a good worker bee who pays your taxes and doesn't ask any questions about where that money goes. He even told a story about being in Arizona recently and getting attacked by 39 college professors.
39. That is such a specific number. Did he say why they attacked him?
He said they attacked him for teaching capitalism. He views the entire academic world as actively hostile to financial freedom. To him, financial education isn't just a subject, it's a weapon. It's self-defense against indoctrination.
It's so interesting because usually we tell kids that education is the ladder up. He sees it as the cage keeping you down.
That's a perfect way to put it. And he extends this us versus them mentality to the entire global stage. This deep dive isn't just about personal finance, it's about geopolitics. And we need to report on this carefully because he gets very political and very controversial.
Yeah, he does not hold back. He describes the world as basically splitting into two different camps.
The West versus the rest,
Yeah.
essentially. He focused really heavily on the BRICS nations.
For those who don't follow global econ, that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa.
Exactly. He argues that these countries are banding together to challenge the dominance of the U.S. dollar. He sees the whole global economy fracturing.
And he places the blame for this, specifically on current U.S. leadership.
He does. And again, we are just reporting his analysis here. He contrasts President Biden and Donald Trump in very, very stark terms. He refers to Donald Trump as a good friend and a capitalist, viewing him as a strong leader. On the other hand, he calls President Biden a criminal and a communist.
Whoa. Okay, those are his words. But he brought up a specific example to back this up, the Keystone XL pipeline. He kept coming back to that pipeline. Why is that one piece of infrastructure so important to his worldview?
Because it's the linchpin of his whole inflation theory. He claims that when the Biden administration cut the Keystone XL pipeline, which would have brought oil from Canada down to the Gulf of Mexico, it wasn't an environmental decision. He thinks it was deliberate economic sabotage.
Sabotage, that implies they wanted prices to go up.
That's his view. He said he was selling oil at $30 a barrel, and after that cut, it shot up to $130.
And when oil goes up?
Everything goes up. That's the mechanism. Food needs to be trucked. Goods need to be shipped. Plastics are made from oil. He argues this inflation was manufactured to wipe out the middle class. His theory is that high energy prices are basically a tax on the poor. He believes this is a feature, not a bug, of the current administration's policy.
That's a terrifying thought, honestly. That the economy is being tanked on purpose to create this massive gap between the rich and the poor. And on top of that, he says America is just bankrupt.
The biggest debtor nation in the world. He compares the U.S. to a guy who is using one credit card to pay off another. He actually called the Japanese stupid, his words, for being savers.
Again with the harsh language. Why are the Japanese stupid?
He explained that the Japanese save yen, buy U.S. dollars, and then the U.S. borrows that money to spend. He sees the whole global financial system as this house of cards built on debt that can never be repaid. He thinks the people still playing by the old rules, saving money, buying bonds, are the ones who are going to get completely crushed when it all falls down.
So let's just recap the mood here. We have fake money, a corrupt education system, a bankrupt government. And if that wasn't enough anxiety for you, let's talk about war. Because Kiyosaki thinks World War III isn't just a possibility. He thinks it's effectively already here.
This was maybe the most somber part of the whole thing. You have to remember, Kiyosaki isn't just an author in a suit. He was a Marine helicopter pilot in Vietnam.
He was very raw about this. He just said, I went to school to kill people.
He did not sugarcoat it. He described being shot down 3 times. He talked about friends who didn't come back. And he contrasted that sacrifice with the reception he got when he came back to the U.S. in 1972.
The hippies.
Yes. He vividly remembers people spitting on him, throwing eggs at him. He harbors this deep, deep resentment toward the peaceniks of that era. He feels like they didn't understand that he was fighting for their freedom. And that experience seems to have hardened him into what he calls a warrior ethos.
He basically said, I don't care about happiness. I care about mission. It explains so much about why he's so aggressive. He still sees himself as a soldier.
Exactly. He believes military officers think differently. They are trained to face reality, no matter how ugly it is. And the reality he sees right now is global conflict. He mentioned Ukraine, Israel, and specifically the tensions in Asia.
Taiwan. He was very specific about Taiwan.
That's the flashpoint for him. And notice, for him, it's not ideological. It's resource-based. He says the war isn't about democracy. It will be over semiconductors.
The chips that power everything from your iPhone to fighter jets.
Right. Taiwan produces the vast majority of the world's advanced chips. Kiyosaki believes that conflict is inevitable because everyone needs those chips.
He actually made a personal life decision based on this, didn't he? He moved his home.
He did. He pointed out that TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, moved a massive plant to Arizona. Kiyosaki moved his residence to Arizona specifically to be near it.
That is wild. I mean, who moves house based on semiconductor supply chains?
Someone who believes the supply chain is about to break. He believes that's where the jobs, the money, and the security will be. It's a prime example of him acting on his own analysis. He doesn't just predict, he positions himself.
So bringing this all back to the listener, we've painted a pretty chaotic picture here. The system is rigged, war is brewing, money is fake. If you're listening to this on your commute, you might be feeling a little overwhelmed, maybe even a little hopeless. What does Kiyosaki actually say we should do?
Well, his advice is really consistent with his worldview. You have to become self-reliant because no one is coming to save you.
Rule number 1, don't work for money.
Correct. If money is fake, fiat currency, then working for a paycheck is a trap. He says the standard advice, go to school, get a job, save 10%, is the worst advice possible.
Because you're saving a melting ice cube.
Exactly. So instead, he says, work for assets. He wants you to convert your fake labor income into real assets as fast as you possibly can.
And he lists them out. Real estate, gold, silver, cattle, oil wells.
Notice the pattern. It's all things you can touch, things that have intrinsic value. If the internet goes down, if the banks close, a cow is still a cow.
Yep.
It produces milk. An oil well still produces energy. A silver coin is still silver.
It's all about being grounded in physical reality.
Yes, he's telling you to buy things that the government cannot print and cannot easily take away from you.
And that connects to the final piece of advice that I thought was actually really profound, and it was about integrity.
This went beyond finance. It was almost spiritual.
He defined integrity as being whole. When your body, your mind, your words, and your actions are all one. He urged listeners to watch what people do, not what they say.
He was definitely taking a swipe at, YouTube fakes who claim to be rich but aren't. But it's a deeper lesson. In a world of fake money and fake news and fake politicians, the only thing you can really trust is action.
Talk is cheap.
Exactly. If a politician says they care about the poor, but their policies create inflation, look at the action, not the words. If a financial guru says to buy crypto but holds none of it, you look at the action.
So true wealth for him comes from aligning your reality, being whole in a totally fragmented world.
That is the philosophical core of his whole argument. It's not just about getting rich to buy a Ferrari. It's about getting rich to buy your freedom from a system that he believes is designed to crush you.
It's intense. It's definitely not your standard skip the latte and save $5 advice.
No, it's buy the silver mine because the dollar is collapsing advice. It's prepper finance.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the main takeaway here? Kiyosaki is a polarizing figure. You might agree with his politics or you might hate them. You might think he's a genius or a fearmonger.
But regardless of how you feel about his personality, and he is abrasive, his core message forces you to question your assumptions. We often go through life on autopilot, right? Assuming the money in our bank is safe, that schools teach us what we need to know, that the government has a plan.
And Kiyosaki is grabbing the steering wheel and just screaming, "Wake up!"
Exactly. He's suggesting that financial literacy is actually an act of rebellion. It's a survival skill for a volatile world. Whether or not you go out and buy silver, the valuable exercise here is to look at your life and ask yourself, am I dependent on a system I don't control?
And that brings us to our final thought for you to chew on today. Kiyosaki keeps drilling this concept that the money in your pocket is an illusion, it's just paper based on trust, and that trust is breaking. So if the thing you spend 40 hours a week working for is fake, what other parts of your reality might be illusions that you've just accepted as fact?
Are your skills real? Is your security real? Or is it all just reliant on a system that could change overnight?
Heavy stuff to think about. But hey, that's why we do the deep dive. We don't just skim the surface, we go to the bottom. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Stay curious and check your integrity.